Hello, everybody, and happy holidays. It is Christmas. It is week 17 of the NFL season, and I went 10-6 last week. Time to see how I can do this week. But before I dive right into it, I want to quickly say subscribe if you're new. Be greatly appreciated, and leave a like while you're at it as well. And comment down below any upsets you have this week. To begin things off, we have the Christmas Day games, and that includes the Kansas City Chiefs at 14-1 and 2.5-point favorites, traveling to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are 10-5. Chiefs had a good win against the Texans last week at home on Saturday, and it was a game where Mahomes may not have played the greatest, but the defense definitely did, and the Chiefs as a whole played well, but that's been their MO this season. That's been their primary objective, is to just win games and get to the playoffs. The Steelers had a tough loss against the Ravens as they're looking to clinch the AFC North, and that was definitely a rough one against the Ravens. They were ran all over. Derrick Henry had a big day. Lamar Jackson was throwing the ball well against them. So they have a chance to bounce back here against the Chiefs at home. I do have the Chiefs winning this game purely because it is Kansas City. It's in Pittsburgh, I know, and it does kind of make me want to lead Pittsburgh. But it's Mahomes, it's the Chiefs. They're going to be a tough team to beat and a team that you need to play a damn near perfect game in order to beat. But some teams' perfect games are different than others. And that's where I feel like the Steelers' perfect game might not just be enough to beat the Chiefs. Because for as much as I like the team that they have built, it's just doesn't feel like a true contender type team. And the Chiefs are pretty much only going to lose if they go up against someone who's probably going to win the Super Bowl this season. So that's why I just don't see that being the Steelers. So give me the Kansas City Chiefs. The final Christmas Day game is the Baltimore Ravens at 10-5 and 5.5-point favorites, making the trip to Houston, who are 9-6. Houston suffered a massive injury last week with the loss of Tank Dell due to a devastating injury that I'm pretty sure was reported as both an ACL tear and a dislocated kneecap. Just a terrible, terrible injury to have. I feel so bad for Tank Dell. Back-to-back seasons with a season-ending injury. It just sucks. The Texans did clinch the division, not last week, but 2 weeks ago, so they already have their spot clinched. Meanwhile, Baltimore is fighting for that playoff spot in the AFC North Division and the title for that, which will be the third seed in the playoffs. And this is a really big game for the Ravens in order to do so, because they have the clear path to get firmly ahead of Pittsburgh as the Steelers play Kansas City and they play Houston. Lamar Jackson is an MVP candidate this season. So is Derrick Henry. And for as good as Houston's defense can be, I think just the power that Lamar and Derrick Henry can bring will be too much. So I do have the Ravens winning this game. And I wouldn't be completely shocked if we see Zay Flowers have a big game and be involved in the ground game as well through some read options and jet sweeps and all the nature. Because Houston did struggle a bit against Xavier Worthy, and although the Chiefs did not use Worthy a lot in that ground game style, I could see Baltimore trying to fit that in there this week, so give me the Ravens. Thursday Night Football is the Seattle Seahawks at 8-7 and 3.5-point favorites, making the trip to Chicago, who are 4-11. This is an interesting game. Both teams coming off of a loss, but two pretty different losses the previous week. The Seahawks, a tough loss against the Vikings in a game that they had the chance to win, but just came up short in the end. Meanwhile, Chicago had a really bad loss against the Lions, and the Lions were just pretty much having fun with the Bears the entire game. And Chicago is in such a rough spot. Pretty sure they're on an 8-game losing streak or something of that nature. It is a really devastating year for Chicago, who was looking so bright early on. Meanwhile, Seattle finds themselves a game back of the NFC West, and that really is their only hope of making the playoffs this season, is to win that division. So they're looking to get back into it. This is going to be a fun game, I think, but a fun game in a sense that we're going to see some pretty creative offenses here. I wouldn't be shocked if Caleb Williams has himself a pretty decent game, but I am more so looking towards to see what the Seahawks offense can do. I have the Seahawks winning, and in part because of what I feel like Geno Smith will be able to do against the Chicago defense, that for as good as it can be sometimes this season, for the most part, do pretty much struggle a lot. So give me the Seattle Seahawks to win. Moving on to the Sunday games, the first one is the Los Angeles Chargers at 9-6 and 4.5-point favorites, making the trip to New England, who are 3-12. Patriots had a tough loss against the Bills last week, but they will see them again later on the season in Week 18. The Chargers had a great win against the Broncos the previous week, and I say great win because it was the ground game finally coming together, and they get J.K. Dobbins back this week, so that was a big-time win for them to get. Justin Herbert has also been playing really well this season, and for as good as New England defense has shown at times this year, the offense is just not backing it up fully, or when the offense is playing well, the defense isn't backing up. Meanwhile, the Chargers have a top 10 defensive unit in the league and a franchise quarterback with a killer arm in Justin Herbert, so I do have the Chargers winning this game. And I'm pretty sure with a win in this one, the Chargers will clinch a playoff spot, so that's a big time game for that regard. So I do have the Chargers winning this game and clinching a playoff spot. The Denver Broncos at 9-6 travel to Cincinnati, who are 7-8 and 3-point favorites. This is an interesting game. I understand why the Bengals are favored. Both defenses have struggled at times this season against other pretty mediocre offenses. The Bengals defense is notoriously bad this year. The Denver defense struggled against the Chargers last week. They struggled against the Browns a few weeks ago. So this is really more so going to probably be a shootout of a game and going to come down to whichever offense has the ball last. But at the end of the day, a shootout also does come down to just the defense having to make one single stand. And I trust Denver's defense to do that a little bit more because at times they have shown to be the better defense. So I do have the Denver Broncos winning this game. I expect Bo Nix to have a big game. I expect the entire offense of Denver and Cincy to have pretty big games. But in the end, I do think Denver rather A, have the ball last, or B, just be able to make that one big time stop needed in order to win this game. So give me the Denver Broncos. The Arizona Cardinals at 7-8 make the trip over to the Los Angeles Rams, who are 9-6 and 5.5-point favorites. The Rams are looking to get this division won. Basically, this is a big time game for them in order to do so. Meanwhile, the Cardinals have been eliminated from the playoff contention, it seems, at this point at 7-8. I mean, maybe if they win, they can sneak back into it, but the issue is the Seattle Seahawks are right there, so I think pretty sure they are eliminated at this point. The big thing with this game in the end is going to be just whose defense will be playing better, as I think both offenses have struggled at times this season. But when those offenses have struggled, the defense has stepped up relatively behind them. I trust the Rams a bit more. They have shown these close games, they've shown to win these close games a lot more. And when the Cardinals' offense has faltered, their defense, although playing well in times, do also falters just way too much in order for them to win those close games, the same way the Rams have won them at times this year. I mean, just look at last week. The Rams won a game despite not forcing a single punt and only giving up 9 points. It was a very impressive defensive showing by the Rams last week. I do have the Rams winning. I think that they'll be just fine, and they probably do end up winning the division at this point in the season. So yeah, give me the Rams. The Indianapolis Colts at 7-8 and 7.5-point favorites make the trip to the New York Giants, who are 2-13. And there's not a whole lot to be said about this game. It is the New York Giants. They're trying to get the #1 overall pick. They can't afford to win like the Raiders did last week. And the Colts are still trying to fight for that playoff spot. They have life in this season. I wouldn't be shocked if we see another banner over MetLife as well. Give me the Colts to win this game. I'm not going to harp on this game too much. I expect the Colts to handle them with ease, but honestly, it is the Colts, so I wouldn't be shocked if this is a much closer game than it has any right being. And we look at how they handled the Titans last week. But at the end of the day, they're playing against the New York Giants. They should be able to handle business, so give me the Indianapolis Colts. The New York Jets at 4-11 make the trip to the Buffalo Bills, who are 12-3 and 9.5-point favorites, the largest point spread of the week. And similar to the previous game, there's not a lot to really be said about this. The Bills are fighting for that 1 seed and hoping to get that 1 seed. We'll see what happens on Christmas. But I do have the Bills winning this game. There's not a whole lot to harp on. I know the Bills and Jets have had a few close games in the past with Zach Wilson and everything. But again, there's just not a lot to really say about this matchup. Aaron Rodgers' time in New York seems to be done. I'm probably going to have a whole video on Rodgers this offseason just to talk about kind of like what his future is looking like and what his legacy will end up being. But it's just a weird situation for both sides. This game is in Buffalo. I mean, the Bills fans are going to be out there crazy as it's the final home game for the Bills this year. Yeah, just give me Buffalo. The Las Vegas Raiders at 3-12 make the trip to the New Orleans Saints, who are 5-10 and 2.5-point favorites. The Saints got manhandled on Monday Night Football. I mean, it just wasn't a great game. The Packers had their number to be expected. The Raiders got a win last week, which makes no sense why they would want to win, because they're trying to get their franchise guy, but maybe they like Quinn Ewers, who knows. The Raiders are a weird team this year, in part because they look like they had a lot of potential, but just nothing came to fruition with it. They're having a lot worse of a season than I thought they were going to have. I thought that they would be in contention for the third spot in the division. Not even close. The Saints, in my opinion, they've been kind of exceeding expectations. I had them finishing last in the division before the year began, and so far they're sitting third ahead of the Panthers, but Carolina has definitely underperformed my expectations. I still don't fully know what to think of both of these teams' futures, but I have the Saints winning this game nonetheless. It's not going to be a great game. I feel bad for whoever's going to be watching this game. But yeah, nonetheless, give me the New Orleans Saints to win this one. The Carolina Panthers at 4-11 make the trip to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 8-7 and 7.5-point favorites. Carolina had a good win last week in overtime against the Arizona Cardinals. Meanwhile, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers find themselves tied for first place in the NFC South after a really devastating loss to the Dallas Cowboys. It was just a bad loss for them to take, but they have a chance to bounce back and redeem themselves in this game and look to get back towards that first place spot. I do have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning this game. For as much as I like what Carolina has shown the past few weeks, and the last time these two teams played, it went to overtime, I just don't fully know how I feel about them going forward. And at least with Tampa, they have something legit to actually fight for and play for at this point in the year. While Carolina is also trying to figure out what they have. Bryce Young is playing well, but his Tampa defense has gave a lot of people trouble. And the offense as well can be a really good offense. I mean, they put up 24 last week. That's not a low number to put up. It just sucks that the defense gave up 26. So I have Tampa to win this game nonetheless. Welcome to the Tank Bowl for this week as the Tennessee Titans at 3-12 make the trip to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are also 3-12 and 1.5-point favorites. The last time these two teams played, it was a snore fest of a game, and a point where I don't even feel like fully talking about this, as this is also probably going to be another just terrible snore fest filled of a game, but I have Jacksonville winning. Similar to the first time these two teams met this year, I just feel like Jacksonville will be able to do enough, even with Mason Rudolph getting the start for Tennessee. I just think Jacksonville has more pieces on them. Talk about underperforming seasons. Jacksonville has vastly underperformed expectations this year. And I think that towards this final 2 weeks of the season, we're going to see them kind of build back up towards those expectations and build it off towards the offseason and get back to it into next year. So I have the Jaguars winning the game. The Dallas Cowboys at 7-8 make the trip to the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 12-3 and 9.5-point favorites. This is also the largest point spread of the week. Cowboys just coming off of a great win against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but they still find themselves eliminated from playoff contention. The Eagles, a tough loss against the Commanders. It was a devastating loss that they had won, but just couldn't quite finish the job. The main thing is, though, what is Jalen Hurts' status? And at the time of recording this, we don't fully know what the status is. We'll find out in the coming days. But even with that being the case, Saquon Barkley is still a beast of a running back and will get plenty of MVP votes. So I have the Eagles winning this game. I expect Saquon to be running all over this Dallas defense. And even if it is Kenny Pickett behind center, I think he'll be fine enough to get the win. Hell, he almost did that against the Commanders last week. I really like the Eagles. I think they are a potential Super Bowl team. And it would be funny to see Kenny Pickett pull off his own little Nick Foles arc this season. But obviously, I hope Jalen Hurts is back sooner rather than later. Nonetheless, give me the Philadelphia Eagles. The Miami Dolphins at 7-8 and 6.5-point favorites make the trip to Cleveland, who are 3-12. This game was originally supposed to be Sunday Night Football, but it was flexed to a 4 o'clock game. And this is going to be a relatively interesting game. The Dolphins' ground game came to life against the 49ers last week, which was a beautiful thing to see. And it's going to be very important for this game, as it's probably going to be cold and snowing, and Cleveland is a pretty solid team. And even with Jameis Winston under center, as long as he doesn't turn the ball over a lot, they're going to be a tough team to beat. I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm going to have the Dolphins winning this game nonetheless, in part because of the fact that the ground game is working again. This team has a lot of fight in them and are looking to keep their season alive. They can't afford to lose this game. And they're looking to finish strong as well in order to build on to next season to try and redeem the downside that was this year. So I have the Miami Dolphins winning this game. Game of the week. The Green Bay Packers at 11-4 make the trip to the Minnesota Vikings, who are 13-2 and 1.5-point favorites. This is going to be a really, really interesting game. The last time these two teams played, the Vikings won in part because of the amount of turnovers they were able to force. But since that game, Jordan Love has tuned down the interceptions he's throwing, and the Packers as a whole have tuned down the amount of turnovers they're having each game. They're playing a really good brand of football and are coming off of a really dominant win on Monday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints. The Vikings, their defense is their defense. One of, if not the best defensive units this season. They're playing phenomenally well, doing their job and getting the job done. The offense is also playing really good. I was expecting the Magic to run out by now, but they still have it going. Sam Darnold is playing some really damn good football. This is going to be an incredible game. This game should have been Sunday Night Football, but instead it's a normal 4:25 kickoff, in which I do have the Packers winning this game. I expect Josh Jacobs to have a pretty big game. This is in Minnesota, so the weather isn't a factor. And with that regard, I expect Jordan Love to have a big game as well. This is probably going to be a shootout. And it's weird to say that in the shootout factor, I trust the Packers defense more. But it's more so the case that Xavier McKinney has been a very good safety this year for the Packers, playing some really high-end football, which of course, again, the Vikings have their guys as well playing high-end football, but they're more so in the front seven. And when there's a shootout, you want the guys in the back end to be making the big-time plays if needed. And I trust Xavier McKinney to make those kind of plays, so give me the Green Bay Packers. Sunday Night Football, the Atlanta Falcons at 8-7 make the trip to Washington, who are 10-5 and 4.5-point favorites. Michael Penix, his first start on the road this season. He started last week, had a pretty decent showing against the Giants, but probably would have liked to see a bit more. He did have that interception that was not his fault by any means, but it still happened. Washington coming off of a great win against the Eagles in a game that Jaden Daniels played phenomenally in. It's Sunday Night Football, going to be an interesting game. I'm sure Commanders fans are happy to have a primetime game to look forward to this year again. I do have the Commanders winning this game, mainly just because that I don't trust Penix enough. We haven't seen a lot from him this season because, one, he only just got his first start last week, and second, he only played in one preseason game. So I don't know what to expect from him. I don't know what to expect from this Falcons team anymore. So yeah, give me the Commanders to win this game. Finally, Monday Night Football, the Detroit Lions at 13-2 and 3.5-point favorites make the trip to San Francisco, who are 6-9. Niners, a tough loss against Miami last week on the road, which also eliminated them from playoff contention, although they were eliminated before that game even started due to other teams winning and losing. The Lions are fighting for that one seed in that division in the NFC North. It's going to be a real interesting game. Although the San Francisco run defense did not really show up against the Dolphins, whose offensive line has been pretty bad this year, especially the ground game has been bad. Now they're going against a Detroit ground game, which is one of the best ground games in the NFL. So definitely looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And if the Lions can't get the ground game going, they can beat you through the defense, they can beat you through the air, they can beat you through special teams. The Lions are a really tough team to beat. I have the Lions winning this game. And again, they're fighting for a lot right now. There's a lot at stake this season right now for the Lions heading into the playoffs. And even though they are banged up, they are still playing really well and still handling business because Dan Campbell is that good of a head coach. I have the Lions winning this game. Well, there you have it. My predictions for Week 17 of the NFL season. Thank you all for tuning in. See you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.